Chapter 6. Creative Uses of Talent Skills. The Pet Bee Service Center opened at 8 a.m. At 7:30, the air was at its coolest. Aspen Grove Village was filled with dense, lush trees, and the morning breeze was soft and gentle. Asher stepped out of his dorm, carrying a freshly made chive pocket and a carton of milk, strolling unhurriedly toward the service center. Just as he neared the entrance, he stopped in his tracks. Wait, what? What is that strange creature near the door? He recalled the villagers mentioning something about wild wolves roaming around. Is it one of them? I have insight. Activate. As long as it was within his line of sight, his talent could take effect. And then, the log panel's display put his mind at ease. Phew. It wasn't a wolf or a beast. Still cautious, Asher approached the service center. If it wasn't a beast, it had to be someone from the village. Anyone with legitimate business would know the service center's opening time. If someone was waiting outside this early, Asher figured they were likely here to stir up trouble. And with a small frame, he wouldn't stand a chance in a fight. What normally took 5 minutes over a few hundred meters turned into a slow 10-minute approach. The moment he saw who it was, he fell silent. There was indeed someone sitting at the entrance. But contrary to his mental image of a tough guy with tattoos, it was a mature woman in a lab coat with her hair loosely tied in a messy bun. She wore frameless glasses, and her striking features exuded elegance. Yet she was slumped against the door, almost dozing off. Asher was quiet for a long moment. With only 15 minutes until work started, he still had breakfast to eat and cleaning to do. There was no room for sentimentality. His job came first. Excuse me, miss? Hello? Could you please move aside? At his words, the woman's eyes snapped open. Ron? Her gaze was still a bit unfocused as she looked at him. Asher quickly understood. It's not opening time yet. Ron usually arrives a bit later. Let me unlock the door so you can wait inside. She nodded, standing up from the steps, instantly leveling herself with him. 17-year-old Asher, standing at 177 centimeters, blinked. Glancing at her long, slender legs, he comforted himself internally. I'm just a little behind on nutrition. With a carton of milk every day, I still have time to reach 180 centimeters by the time I am 18. As he opened the door, the woman, who had clearly taken a taxi all night, seemed to fully wake up. In an instant, she recognized Asher as the blue-uniformed boy in the video she'd watched multiple times. Hello, I'm Iris, a professor at Blue University in New York City and Ron's graduate advisor. She introduced herself politely. Yesterday, Ron sent me the surveillance video of the honeybug's evolution. Would it be alright if I asked you some questions about it? Asher was a bit taken aback. Blue University was equivalent to a top-tier institution, one of New York City's finest, renowned for its programs in pet beast breeding and care. Every year, it attracted as many applicants as the nation's elite universities. Of course, I'll answer whatever I can. He had no reason to refuse. It just meant breakfast would have to wait. Iris pulled a chair from the front desk and sat down, her eyes behind her glasses burning with curiosity, as if she could see right through him. I've already watched the footage over 10 times, and I have some theories about the honeybug's evolution. Since the video came from her own student, she hadn't doubted its authenticity for a moment. There was no reason to. Assuming the footage was real, every detail mattered. Many beast masters, and even ordinary people, don't even consider honeybugs worthy of the term pet beast, she began. It's not just because honeybugs are low-grade, but also because of their timid nature. They're prone to committing suicide at the slightest disturbance. Not to mention, if their honey sac is removed, honeybugs fall into a frenzied state and end their own lives immediately. But the honeybug that young lady brought yesterday was clearly different. You were in close contact with it. Could you describe its personality? Hearing this, Asher thought he saw a glint in Iris's glasses. He didn't hide anything, simply nodded. Yes, that honeybug was different from most others. It had used Sacrifice Strike, but didn't die, managing to hold on until it got here. Asher recounted Ivy's reason for bringing Nene to the service center. The surveillance footage didn't capture audio, so Iris's eyes lit up as she heard additional information. Sacrifice Strike? This honeybug is anything but ordinary. Iris grew even more certain of this as she continued. The evolution happened after its honey sac was removed, correct? Asher nodded. I see. Iris's face broke into an enlightened smile. Courageous, not prone to self-harm, and honey sac removal. These are the keys to honeybee evolution. Her tone was filled with conviction. Asher's eyes widened in shock. How can her guess be so spot on? Not a single detail is off. Honeybee evolution hinged on it not committing suicide after honey sac removal. But not committing suicide was already an insurmountable challenge for most people. Noticing Asher's expression, Iris mistook it for doubt in her theory. You think my guess is unreliable? No, Asher shook his head. Bold hypothesis, careful verification. The unique trait of that honeybug was indeed its personality. Professor Iris's line of thinking makes perfect sense. Iris laughed. I was wondering how to tell you that one of my research projects focuses on pet beast evolution. My theories aren't unfounded. Thank you for your trust and cooperation. After asking her questions, Iris stood up. Could you share that young lady's contact information with me? Asher didn't agree immediately. Would it be all right if I ask her first? He had assumed someone from the Alliance would be visiting, so it was better to ask Ivy's permission. Iris didn't mind his caution, even giving him an approving look. Very good. You know how to respect a young lady's choice. All right then, let's exchange contact info, and if she agrees, you can pass her number to me. I'll be off now. After they exchanged numbers, Iris left as abruptly as she'd arrived, like a whirlwind coming and going without a trace. Asher could only think, what a remarkable woman. Meanwhile, somewhere in a room, Ron lay flat on his bed as he murmured, Professor. Iris. Chapter 7. Trusting in the pure stupidity of college students. The moment Ron learned that Professor Iris had already left, he froze in place. Crack, crack. If a breeze blew by, he might just shatter into pieces. Asher, now dressed in his work uniform, looked at Ron with a mixture of surprise and amusement while munching on his chive pocket. It was the first time he'd seen someone in real life actually display those anime-like effects. It took a while for Ron to snap out of his daze, only to find Asher watching him with a curious gaze. Recalling his own behavior, Ron's face flushed, and he tried to act nonchalant. But the embarrassment lingered. Cough, cough, he cleared his throat, clenching his fist to cover his awkwardness, but then struggled for words. He'd lost all face. Don't eat breakfast during work hours, actually forget it. Today's an exception. Ron started to change the subject, but then remembered today's special circumstances. He couldn't bear to stay here another second. This is a one-time exception. With that, Ron quickly pushed open the glass door and disappeared into the treatment room. Asher smiled as he watched him leave, then finished off his breakfast within a few minutes. He was well aware that Ron didn't exactly view him favorably. He could also guess the reason. Ron had worked hard to earn a position at the service center. In contrast, the Alliance had simply assigned Asher a work-study position at the center without much effort on his part. Though the salary wasn't as high as Ron's, Asher's wage was still better than many entry-level jobs, all because he had the qualifications to become a Beast Master. He understood Ron's perspective and tried to avoid conflict. But he didn't appreciate it when Ron took out his frustrations on him. Whenever he had the chance to put Ron in an uncomfortable position, Asher wouldn't let it slip by. After this, though, Ron probably wouldn't bother me for a few days, right? With that thought, Asher tidied up the front desk, sent a message to Ivy, and with the hum of the old fan in the background, resumed studying his textbook. He'd be a senior this year, so he couldn't afford to slack off now. At the New York City Alliance Division for Beast Masters, it was just past 9 when the receptionist saw her first visitor of the day. A tall, mature woman with model-like proportions and refined features, dressed in a white lab coat, approached. At 170 centimeters in flat shoes, her every step radiated confidence. The receptionist couldn't look away, nor could her 2 colleagues nearby. They were itching to scream, "Queen, slay us." Who wouldn't adore a charismatic, seductive woman? Certainly not her. "Excuse me, is President Rob available?" Iris asked, catching the receptionist's sparkling gaze as she came to the desk. Snapping back to her professional demeanor, the receptionist replied, "May I ask who you are? Do you have an appointment?" "I'm Professor Iris from Blue Wind University. Here's my Beast Master ID card. I don't have an appointment." Iris introduced herself plainly, presenting her credentials. After verifying her ID on the machine, the receptionist smiled politely. "Thank you. Your identity has been verified. President Rob will be in his office in an hour. He has a Pet Beast conference with Radiant City this morning, but he'll have a free hour this afternoon. Would you like to schedule a time? Tell him that I've discovered a new Pet Beast evolution. If I don't see him within half an hour, I'll head back to Radiant City to make my report." The receptionist's eyes widened, practically shaking with shock. After recalling the credentials on Iris's Beast MasterCard, the receptionist didn't dare doubt her words. She immediately dialed President Rob, relaying the situation. "Have her wait in my office. Half an hour. No, I'll be there in 10 minutes. The frantic voice on the other end was cut off by the sound of the line disconnecting. It was clear that President Rob was already on his way. After hanging up, the receptionist led Iris to his office. She brought her tea and water and, after ensuring that she needed no further assistance, returned to her post. No sooner had she returned than her two colleagues were already nudging her and whispering, "Hey, remember that call yesterday? The call you took, and now today there's a professor here saying she's discovered a new pet beast evolution. Do you think they're connected?" The receptionist, finally putting the pieces together, started becoming pale, like fading into the air. Is my job on the line here?" Her voice wobbled with a hint of panic. She could hardly believe these two events weren't connected. Her colleagues patted her shoulders sympathetically. "Rest in peace. You better be telling the truth about finding a new pet beast evolution path. You didn't just call me here for something else, right? My snow wolf nearly rattled me to death on the way over." President Rob burst into the office, sweating and slightly out of breath, with a snow wolf about half his height following closely behind. "Long time no see, President Rob." "Hello, Snowy." Iris greeted them, her gaze lingering on the majestic snow wolf rather than the now slightly pudgy, middle-aged President Rob. One glance, and Rob could tell that Iris was less than thrilled to see him. But that didn't matter. "Hurry up, show me the evidence." Without a word, Iris handed him her phone, displaying the surveillance footage that Ron had sent her the previous night. "My graduate student sent me this, not fully understanding its significance, so I'm showing you directly. I won't be sending it to you. Just watch it here," Iris said. Rob clicked on the videos. The first clip showed Ivy walking into the service center with the honey bug. The second captured the honey bug in the life support machine, detailing its evolution from start to finish. He scrubbed through the timeline, particularly the second video, watching it multiple times. His expression grew more serious with each replay. "You're sure this video is genuine? A honey bug. This was a pet beast that, for over 1,200 years, had no known evolution path or potential to evolve." If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Rob wouldn't have believed it. Iris nodded. "I know my student's character. He's just a regular guy who got into the service center job right after graduation. Not the type to have any tricks up his sleeve. He's got some brains, but not much cunning." She all but directly called him a pure, naive college graduate. Rob was silent. "Now I see why you contacted me. I was wondering, if you discovered a pet beast evolution path, you'd be publishing a paper, not calling me." So it happened in a rural town under New York City's jurisdiction, and she couldn't bypass him. Chapter 8. All thanks to Asher. Iris shrugged, not denying President Rob's words. Who could argue? If she discovered this in her lab, she'd be writing a paper for the top journals in no time. This is a major breakthrough. She pointed to the surveillance footage. If we can confirm this evolution path is real and reproducible. President Rob followed her line of thought. That would absolutely shake the Beast Master community to its core. As long as evolved honeybugs reach the low-grade, low-tier level, they'll draw countless Beast Masters eager to raise them. Every pet beast raised by a Beast Master requires an enormous investment of time and money. The former could be sustained with enough dedication. But the latter? That was a natural barrier, especially for families with ordinary incomes whose children had just awakened their Beast Master abilities. Parents were often reluctant to send their children out to capture wild, extraordinary creatures, as it was dangerous and costly. But on the market, even low-grade, low-tier extraordinary creatures cost anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions. And that's not even counting special pet food, examination fees, medical expenses, and more. The state and the Alliance do what they can to support beast masters from average backgrounds. But for most ordinary families, becoming an advanced beast master is nearly impossible. Some particularly talented or lucky individuals might advance to become intermediate beast masters. As for those who rose to advance beast master status from humble backgrounds, they were 1 in 1,000, if not rarer. But if honey bugs could be proven to evolve, this reality would change. Not drastically, but it would make a real impact. So, are you planning to shift your research on pet beast evolution to focus on honey bugs? President Rob asked, having grasped the subtle yet significant implications. Absolutely. Since this discovery, my research will now focus on that direction, Iris replied with a faint smile. And given that I already have a hypothesis, it's just a matter of time. As she spoke, Iris frowned. Come to think of it, finding a bold honeybug is going to be a challenge. President Rob laughed heartily. Exactly. Trying to find a courageous honeybug, it'd be a miracle to find one in 10,000. After some discussion, Iris received a message from Asher. Ivy had agreed to bring her fairy butterfly to the Alliance for a routine examination. At last, I'll be able to see an evolved honeybug with my own eyes. I can't wait, Iris exclaimed. Neither she nor President Rob could contain their excitement. Wait for the girl to come on her own? No way. They were going to pick her up themselves. At the Aspen Grove Village Pet Beast Service Center, when the door opened again, Asher's expression was a bit surprised. Huh. 2 days in a row with visitors at the service center? Are that many beast masters coming to town lately? The record before this was 11 straight days with no visitors. Then, Asher saw Iris walk in with a middle-aged man and Ivy trailing behind them. His face was full of questions. What is going on? Hello, you must be Asher? I'm Rob, the president of the New York City Beast Master Alliance. Just call me President Rob. The middle-aged man, President Rob, greeted him with a warm smile. Asher stood up and shook hands. Hello, President Rob. What brings the three of you here together? It's all about Ivy, Iris replied, ignoring President Rob's uncharacteristically big smile. Seeing Asher's confusion, Iris explained. With Ivy's permission, we brought her and her evolved honeybug to the Alliance for further examination. Through thorough and comprehensive testing, Iris and President Rob's views had drastically shifted. This wasn't just a major event for the Beast Master community. It was a meteor crashing down. It left them utterly stunned. After assessing the evolved honeybug's various abilities, the Beast Master Alliance had classified it as low-grade extraordinary, high tier. Were it not for the honeybug's abundance and the ease of capture, they would have immediately classified it as a mid-grade creature. Asher nodded in understanding. Still, if the fairy butterfly is classified as mid-grade extraordinary, low tier by my talent, there has to be a reason for the difference. But either way, a leap from being unranked to nearly mid-grade extraordinary? No one doubted it. Once news of honeybug evolution was announced, they'd immediately become the most popular pet beast among beast masters. Asher agreed with their thinking. Absolutely. The evolved honeybug isn't just powerful, it is also beautiful. Just looking at the fairy butterfly by Ivy's side, it seemed too beautiful to be real. So, Asher still couldn't quite understand why they were all here together. Iris smiled. I plan to conduct more in-depth research on the honeybug's evolution path and publish a paper. I invited Ivy to join me, but she feels this achievement is due to your efforts. Hearing this, Asher was momentarily speechless. He was both surprised and pleased. It made him even more grateful that he had helped Nene evolve. I only did what I felt was right, he replied with a gentle smile. Asher understood clearly. He had simply acted at the right time. If someone else had helped remove the honey sac from Ivy's honeybee, it would still have evolved. The person Ivy should truly be grateful to was herself. It was her love that had helped Nene survive after losing the honey sac. No, that's not it. Ivy stepped out from behind Iris and President Rob, the dreamy, radiant fairy butterfly fluttering beside her. With a loud voice, she said, if it had been anyone else, they might not have saved Nene. Are you? Her face flushed with anxiousness, but sweat beaded on her forehead as she struggled to find the right words. Asher's expression remained a bit puzzled. However, Iris and President Rob understood Ivy's feelings. Sigh. The thing was because honey bugs were so inexpensive and lacked any offensive abilities, even regular people could keep them as pets. When honey bugs got injured, very few beast masters would bring them in for treatment. It was even rarer for ordinary people to do so. Honeybug injured? Spend tens of thousands on treatment without the Alliance subsidy? Might as well just get a new one. Even if a person had a strong bond with their honeybug and wanted to bring it in, many pet service center staff would refuse treatment. The reason? Honeybugs were too low grade to qualify as extraordinary creatures, and the center's medical equipment was for extraordinary beasts only. They'd suggest taking the honeyboo to a regular pet clinic instead. But the real reason? Well, let's not even go there. So Ivy's gratitude toward Asher was heartfelt, and Iris and President Rob agreed. Thank goodness she'd met Asher. Otherwise, it might have taken 50 or even 100 years before the beast master community discovered that honeybugs could actually evolve. Chapter 9. Unlocking New Features. Asher opened his mouth, trying to process it all. A bit over the top, but he could understand. This sort of social hierarchy exists everywhere. In fact, he was probably the odd one out for helping a honeybug without a second thought. President Rob immediately picked up on Asher's thoughts. Like you said, you did what felt right, but it was thanks to your help that we discovered honeybugs could evolve. To you, it may have been a small act, but to the world of beast masters, this is a major discovery. No matter how we continue researching this evolution, we can't overlook your contribution. Iris added, based on the evolution requirements we know, reproducing this evolution shouldn't be too difficult. By the end of the month, we'll have results and publish a paper. I'll list you and Ivy as co-authors. This time, both Asher and Ivy waved their hands in refusal. There is no need, really. Appearing on a research paper alongside Professor Iris, the pressure was huge. The main issue was, I only did what was in my power. Being listed as a co-author is a bit much. Professor Iris, please don't. Compared to Asher's calmness, Ivy was on the verge of stammering with panic. President Rob let out a hearty laugh. Ha! Iris, you're scaring the kids. Co-authoring a paper with you would be too stressful for them. Then he glanced at Asher. All right then, tell me, have you contracted your first pet beast yet? Asher shook his head. He hadn't. And this was exactly why he'd been so conflicted lately. I've applied for 2 years, but haven't made the cut yet. This year's results aren't out yet. Understood? President Rob hadn't looked into Asher's background before coming, but he could guess easily enough. A work-study job at the service center usually meant a challenging family background, likely an orphan or from a low-income household. For people like him, contracting their first pet beast was best done by applying to the Alliance's breeding base. Low cost, reliable strength. It just required a bit of luck. After all, the Alliance breeding bases could only provide a limited number of pet beasts each year. 2 years without getting in was nothing. There were people who applied 10 years straight without success. Luck. It all came down to luck. In that case, President Rob chuckled. As one of the key individuals in this discovery and in assisting with the honeybug's evolution, you're now eligible to access 6 of New York City's 7 breeding bases for pet beasts. The only one excluded is the high-tier base. You can choose one beast from any of these 6 bases as your pet beast. How does that sound? This reward wasn't randomly decided. As the first person to discover honeybug evolution, Asher deserved recognition. But it was complicated. Asher's discovery was partially coincidental. Further research and verification would be needed. Who should take credit for the findings? Ivy had gained the evolved fairy butterfly, which was already a lucky break. Asher's contribution was undeniable, yet the scale of his credit was a tricky matter. After much consideration, President Rob came up with what he believed to be the most fitting reward within his authority. Upon hearing this, Asher's warm smile grew a bit more genuine. Wait, access to New York City's 6 extraordinary creature breeding bases, and I can choose any one of them as my pet. This reward is exactly what I needed. I understand, President. Success here did involve some luck, Asher replied with a smile. He hadn't thought much about it at the time. Partly, he'd been curious about the honeybug's evolution, and partly, he wanted to test his talent skills accuracy. The fact that it led to solving his dilemma about his first contracted pet beast was an unexpected bonus. As for the fame and influence Iris and President Rob would gain from announcing honeybug evolution, Asher wasn't as concerned as they might think. If he wanted to, it wouldn't be difficult to recreate such a miracle, or as they though it. I accept and thank you, President Rob and Professor Iris. Asher smiled warmly. President Rob. Just a tiny hint of guilt crept in. It almost felt like he was tricking an innocent child. But Iris, unfazed, simply waved a hand dismissively. Since you've agreed, let's leave it at that. But you're starting your senior year soon, right? Have you decided on a major for university? If not, consider studying pet beast evolution and breeding. Who knows, you might even end up as my student. She adjusted her glasses thoughtfully. Her words made Asher pause. Ah, that actually sounds like a pretty good idea. I'll give it some thought, Asher replied seriously. After all, his talent skill was well suited for this field. President Rob was stunned. Blue Wind University? As Professor Iris's student? Not just anyone could manage that. Are these two for real? One daring to offer, and the other daring to accept. One last thing. Iris raised a finger. As the one who discovered an extraordinary creature's evolution path, you get the right to name the evolved creature. By rights, Ivy should be the one to name it, but she declined and passed the honor to you. So, Iris gestured to the fairy butterfly next to Ivy. Give its new species a name. I'll use it in my paper. Asher hesitated for a couple of seconds before finally agreeing. Fairy butterfly. All right, fairy butterfly it is. We'll be on our way. With that, Iris and President Rob left. Ivy didn't linger either. She thanked Asher once more before leaving the service center. In an instant, the main hall returned to its usual silence. Sitting back down with his familiar pet beast breeding manual in hand, Asher found himself unable to calm down. Is it really just a single day? It felt like my life has fast-forwarded through an entire year. His talent, skills, authenticity, and potential had been verified. The problem of finding a contracted pet beast, which had troubled him for half a month, was resolved. And he'd even received guidance on his future major and grad school options. What a day! What an incredibly full day. Feeling almost overwhelmed, Asher instinctively activated his eye of insight talent. And then, a puzzled expression crept onto his face. Turns out, this day can get even more fulfilling. Asher had complained more than once about how crude and underdeveloped his talent skills display panel was. But just now, the moment he activated his talent, the panel underwent a complete transformation. Not that it had become especially refined, but it looked smoother, more polished, almost as if he'd paid for an upgrade. The UI design was noticeably improved. Besides the visual enhancements, there were also some subtle changes in what his talent displayed. The once linear logs had been organized into two main sections. Insight logs. This opened a list of previously viewed beasts along with dates and basic information. Pet Beast Codex. Only one icon was currently lit. Fairy Butterfly. He clicked on the single glowing icon, the dreamlike fairy butterfly, and a screen of both familiar and unfamiliar information appeared before him. Pet Beast, Fairy Butterfly. Attribute, Fairy. Type, Mid-grade extraordinary, low tier. Level, maximum attainable. Tier 8. The evolved fairy butterfly is gentle in nature, highly obedient to beast masters, and produces a special honey with stamina-restoring and minor healing effects. Fairy butterfly's gift. Heart of Protection can teach acquired skills to contracted pet beasts. Fairy butterfly recognition level 30. Asher's eyes widened in disbelief. Wait. What is going on? His talent skill, it seemed to have evolved into something incredible. The codex didn't just display the basic stats of a single fairy butterfly. It showed the most detailed information about the entire species of extraordinary creatures known as fairy butterflies. This talent skill was now far stronger than he'd ever imagined. Chapter 10. The Little Spirit Cat Breeding Base. Asher couldn't help feeling a bit shocked. But was it overwhelming shock? Not quite. What use all this detailed information anyway? Just to write a beast codex? If anything, what intrigued Asher more was the sudden 30-point increase in the fairy butterfly's public recognition level. Yesterday it was 0. Today it has risen to 30. Where did this increase come from? After a moment's thought, Asher had a theory. Professor Iris, President Rob, Ivy. Iris had accurately figured out the conditions for a honeybug's evolution into a fairy butterfly. She'd shared her guess with President Rob and took Ivy and her fairy butterfly to the Beast Master Alliance for a full examination. See, recognize, it might be the latter that mattered most. Or possibly both. If one person adds 10 recognition points, then 5,000 points means 500 people. Once 500 people recognize the fairy butterfly, he'd get a chance to draw a skill from it. Asher felt this was a good deal, though putting it into practice might be tough. Promoting an unknown evolution path to the general public was never easy. Moreover, how could he explain his ability to repeatedly help extraordinary creatures evolve? Remembering Iris's words, Asher formulated a rough plan. To unlock more skills, to gain more chances to draw them, he'd study hard and get into a pet beast evolution program. But before that, I need to visit the beast breeding base and select my first pet. Contracting his first pet beast would be the true first step toward becoming a beast master. Seeing all 6 bases in New York City in a single day wasn't feasible. As the workday ended, Asher approached Ron to request time off. Ron, big brother, I'd like to take a day off tomorrow and combine it with the weekend for a short break. Ron immediately frowned. A day off? What for? His tone was reluctant. If Asher took a day off, he'd have to be the one sitting at the front desk. My application went through. I'm going to pick out my pet beast. Asher didn't want to explain too much, but knew he couldn't hide it either, so he kept it brief. Even with just that, Ron's face twisted slightly when he heard it. Beast Master? Pet beast? Tisich. Fine, Ron responded icily, then turned on his heel and walked away stiffly without looking back. No objections meant approval. As for Ron's annoyance, Asher paid it no mind. The next day, Asher had planned his route the night before and consulted with Iris. Following her advice, he made the New York City Beast Master Alliance his first stop. As he entered, the receptionist immediately noticed the young man approaching. Black hair, white t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, a simple look, clean and neat. His features weren't extraordinary, but his warm, perpetually smiling eyes gave him a distinctive charm. Hello, I'm Asher. Professor Iris sent me here to register. He smiled as he introduced himself to the receptionist. Initially a bit starstruck, the receptionist's expression turned awkward the moment she heard Iris's name. She even seemed a bit nervous as she looked at him. Asher? He couldn't help but feel confused. Did something happen? The receptionist, recalling the scare from yesterday, had lost all interest in admiring a handsome face. With complete professionalism, she quickly checked the records. All right, I've found you. You're Asher, correct? Please present your ID. After verifying Asher's identity and completing the registration, the receptionist respectfully handed him a black card. Your information is confirmed. This pass was specially arranged by Professor Iris and President Rob. It grants you access to 6 of New York City's breeding bases, excluding the Snow Wolf base, and includes an accompanying guide. The pass will deactivate once you've selected your pet beast. Asher accepted the card and smiled at her. Thank you. With that, he walked out. The next time he returned would be to register as an apprentice beast master. Watching Asher's figure disappear, the receptionist couldn't resist gossiping in hushed tones. Who's that? A relative of the president? He gets to choose any extraordinary creature from 6 breeding bases. We've seen President Rob's relatives before. And this guy mentioned Professor Iris. Maybe he's related to her? I don't think so. Just look at him. He seems pretty ordinary. Then how does he have such privileges? I can't figure it out. I have a guess. Do you think it might be related to that news from yesterday? The group glanced at each other, silently connecting the dots. Maybe it was best not to speculate too much. There are 7 beast breeding bases in New York City. The one closest to downtown is the Little Spirit Cat breeding base. This was Asher's second destination. Showing his ID, he easily entered the base. And for the first time, he saw the Little Spirit Cats with his own eyes. Little Spirit Cats are a popular choice among many beast masters, a staff member explained in detail. They look like regular cats, but their appearance, abilities, health, and lifespan all far surpass ordinary cats. They also have 3 possible evolution paths. Many beast masters choose to contract a Little Spirit Cat in the early or mid stages. Although the staff didn't know Asher's exact background, the black card in his hand made it clear he had connections. Following the principle of not offending anyone, they provided the best service possible within their job scope. Unaware of the staff's thoughts, Asher nodded gratefully, his gaze sweeping over the Little Spirit Cats. He had to admit, creatures endowed with extraordinary abilities weren't just strong. They were beautiful. Little Spirit Cats closely resembled regular kittens, slightly smaller, with glossier, more vibrant fur, and they didn't shed. His eyes landed on a completely black Little Spirit Cat. Pet Beast, Little Spirit Cat. Type, Low-grade Extraordinary, Mid-tier. Level, Tier 1 Mid-level. Skills, Scratch, Sprint, Bite. Evolution Path, Shadow Leopard. Not yet eligible for evolution. What evil thoughts could a Little Spirit Cat have? It simply wants to enslave every human it meets. Asher's mouth twitched. The staff member noticed his gaze and smiled. That's one of our newly bred Little Spirit Cats this year. It has a pretty good temperament and doesn't mind being around humans. Should be easy to raise. Asher was speechless. A good temperament? Treating every human equally as a litter box cleaner. Yeah, that's one way to be easygoing. He said nothing, letting his gaze shift to another Little Spirit Cat, this one a black and white furball currently zooming around energetically. Pet Beast, Little Spirit Cat. Type, Low-grade Extraordinary, Mid-tier. Level, Tier 1, Low level. Skills, Scratch, Hiss, Bite. Evolution Path, Shadow Leopard, Gale Spirit Cat. Not yet eligible for evolution. Once I grow wings, nothing will be out of my reach. Asher's mouth twitched again. This is pure cat behavior through and through. After making a full circuit of the Little Spirit Cat breeding base, Asher found the best qualified cat, a sunbathing orange tabby. Pet Beast, Little Spirit Cat. Type, Low-grade Extraordinary, Mid-tier. Level, Tier 1 Mid-level. Skills, Scratch, Hiss, Bite. Evolution Path, Shadow Leopard, Gale Spirit Cat, Blazing Tiger King. Not yet eligible for evolution. The cat has no interest in becoming stronger, only in eating and sunbathing. Burp, hungry again. Time to mooch. The only Little Spirit Cat with all 3 evolution paths. But it seemed a bit too content to just lie around and wait for food. Chapter 11. An Unexpected Find. Choosing the first pet beast. It took nearly 2 hours for Asher to complete a tour of the Little Spirit Cat breeding base. He learned a lot. Before leaving, he smiled and said to the staff, "Thank you for guiding me all this time." "No trouble at all." The staff member waved off. As Asher walked out, he noticed it was almost lunchtime. So, he picked a nearby diner and quickly ate a cheap lunchbox meal. With 5 more breeding bases to visit over the next 2 days, he needed to examine every potential pet beast carefully. Though Asher's talent allowed him to review the details of the beasts, the selection was far from easy. That afternoon, he visited the giant centipede breeding base and the fluffy puff breeding base. The former housed a low-tier, high-grade beast resembling an oversized, terrifying centipede. Poison attribute. Excellent in combat. Its only downside was its appearance, which was horrifying, to say the least. Asher's thoughts? Strength could be improved with training, but looks were a lifetime issue. Pass. The latter base featured the fluffy puff, a mid-grade, low-tier beast resembling a giant dandelion, having evolved from a plant. Compared to the giant centipede, the fluffy puff was far more popular among beast masters. Part of its appeal lay in its snowy, fluffy appearance like a burst of fur, while the rest stemmed from its abilities. The Fluffy Puff was a hybrid wood and poison-type beast. Of over 200 known beasts, only fewer than 30 possessed multiple attributes. More attributes meant more potential skills. It also increased the likelihood of mutation and potential for evolution. The Fluffy Puff's common skills were Parasite and Drain. It could plant poison-laden seeds on opponents and absorb sunlight or the opponent's energy to replenish itself, resulting in impressive stamina. Dubbed an endurance war god, it was a must-have basic pet for Beastmasters. It also served as a top-notch tool for annoying opponents. Its known evolution paths included the tankier Ivy Fluff and the more attack-focused Poison Fluff, capable of offense and defense, with the potential for undiscovered evolution paths. Asher's interest in choosing the Fluffy Puff as his first pet beast shot up. I'll check out the remaining bases tomorrow, but if I end up choosing the Fluffy Puff, it'll be worth the experience. After all, in Aspen Grove Village, he'd only seen 3 types of beasts. 2 of them were unranked. Only a single bird was low-tier, low-grade. High-grade beasts weren't common enough to be everywhere. With that in mind, Asher closed his eyes and drifted off. As usual, he slept soundly. Fire Ant breeding base. Oriental Peacock breeding base. Blue Lotus breeding base. Asher toured them one by one, following his plan. Then, at the Oriental Peacock breeding base, he stumbled upon a beast that was either a surprise or a shock. "Excuse me, could you tell me about this bird?" Asher pointed to a tiny bird with glossy black feathers that shimmered under the sunlight, no bigger than a palm. Judging by its size, it was much smaller than typical bird. Moreover, Oriental Peacock, true to their name, were known for their dazzling, colorful plumage. A pure black Oriental Peacock? It was hardly different from a crow. Yet this little bird's distinctive color made it stand out in a flock of vibrant Oriental peacocks, catching the eye immediately. The staff looked at the bird, and then back at Asher with a knowing expression. "Ah, this one?" With a look that said, "I know what you're thinking," the staff replied. "It's indeed a Oriental Peacock, a mutated one at that." After some testing, the mutation direction wasn't ideal. Oriental peacocks usually attack with sound and speed, but this one has never made a sound in the 2 years since it was born. And as for flying, the staff sighed at the end. Asher got the message. In short, this little guy was far below the standard abilities of the Oriental peacock species. The staff's words flowed smoothly, clearly having explained this many times before. After all, this tiny black Oriental peacock was eye-catching. Every beast master who visited the Oriental Peacock breeding base noticed it first. Mutations were a unique phenomenon that only appeared in beasts with stable breeding potential. Most mutations weren't beneficial, but a rare few mutations could make beasts even more powerful than before. For that slim chance, many people were willing to take a chance on a mutated beast. You never know when you might hit the jackpot, after all. Seeing that Asher's gaze remained fixed on the mutated Oriental Peacock, the staff wasn't surprised. Before you, 2 beast masters around your age also wanted to choose it as their first pet. But after reviewing its health report from the base, they both gave up. If you're interested, I recommend you review its report carefully first. The staff cautioned him. Wanting to be unique was understandable for young people. But choosing a pet beast, especially a first pet, was a very serious decision. The choice and training of the first pet could heavily impact a beast master's growth. The stronger the pet, the more resources a beast master could secure, and the faster they'd progress. Also, the beast master and pet contract law strictly prohibited beast masters from abandoning their pets without cause. Violators could face fines, detention, or even permanent revocation of their beast master status in severe cases. Asher smiled and nodded. "Thank you. Could I see that report? I'm genuinely interested in this guy." The staff offered no resistance and promptly handed him the report. And it was as the staff had described. According to the inspection, the breeding base determined that this little Oriental Peacock's mutation had a stealth focus, with its small, inconspicuous size and dark coloring making it easy to blend into shadows. The trade-off was the loss of its sound and speed as attack methods, unable to vocalize and awkward in flight. From the report's conclusion, it was a severely flawed mutation. Yet, Asher once again used his talent to view this small bird. On the panel visible only to him, the information read, Pet Beast, Oriental Peacock. Type, Mid-grade low tier. Level, Tier 2 mid-level. Skill, Eagle Eye. Evolution paths. Radiant Peacock, three-legged golden crow. Evolution materials not yet gathered. Look at me, look at me. Look at my feathers glisten in the sunlight. I'm waiting for someone who sees my worth. Take me home, and I'll protect you. Asher pursed his lips, feeling conflicted. Peacock, golden crow. Neither of these evolution paths seemed remotely related to a typical Oriental peacock. Looking around at the other birds, he saw the standard evolution paths. Wide-winged Oriental peacock and songbird Oriental peacock, with a third unknown one labeled sacred kingfisher. Yet this black Oriental peacock was unique. Asher hesitated for 3 seconds. This one it is. The fluffy puff can wait a little longer. Once his beast space became broader and more stable, he considered taking in another pet. This Oriental peacock is the one. After reading the report, Asher confirmed his decision. Now it was the staff's turn to be surprised. He checked repeatedly with Asher. Are you certain? Contracting this Oriental peacock may not be your best option. Don't sacrifice your future for the sake of a unique mutation. Though there are cases of pets with negative mutations improving through training, they're exceedingly rare. If you choose to contract this Oriental peacock, you'll need to take full responsibility for it. With a firm gaze on the black bird, Asher replied, I've thought it over. I won't regret this decision. Thank you for your concern. Seeing Asher's determination, the staff sighed. I've said what I needed to. I'll proceed with your registration. Please wait a moment. Before long, the small black Oriental peacock was brought out to meet Asher face to face. The little Oriental peacock tilted its head, staring at Asher with its beady black eyes. Chapter 12. Evolution or Wallet Drainer. Though the little black bird was silent, Asher could almost decipher the look of curiosity on its fluffy face. Mainly because he recalled the little Oriental peacock's inner thoughts he'd seen earlier. Ahem. Definitely a bird with a personality. Hello there. Asher took the initiative to greet this unique peacock. He bent down, extended his hand gently toward the black-feathered bird, and said softly, Would you like to be my pet beast? The small black Oriental peacock seemed taken aback, as if it hadn't expected such a question. Was he asking for its consent? Its beady eyes noticeably widened, genuinely surprised. Then, without hesitation, the little bird hopped forward, its tiny feet landing right in Asher's palm, hopping and fluttering as it scrambled up his arm, eventually perching on his shoulder. It leaned in close, nuzzling Asher's cheek. Its response was clear. Yes. Absolutely yes. Asher's face broke into a genuine smile. The thought that he finally had his very own pet beast filled him with an uncontainable joy that bubbled up from the bottom of his heart. All right then, let's begin the contract. Closing his eyes, Asher felt his nerves tingle. It's really happening? To say he wasn't both nervous and excited would be a lie. With his eyes closed, he focused on the mental energy within his mind, tentatively guiding it as he connected with the small Oriental peacock perched on his shoulder. Then, suddenly, the Oriental peacock vanished from his shoulder. A tiny presence appeared within his spiritual sea, nestled in his beast space. Phew, the contract is a success. The next second, Asher summoned the little Oriental peacock from his beast space. With that, he officially became a trainee beast master. To Asher's surprise, what should have been a simple process instead revealed a striking side to this unique little Oriental peacock. As the spiritual light coalesced and transformed into the Oriental peacock's form, a burst of brilliance erupted in Asher's spiritual world. The Oriental peacock spread its wings, every feather shimmering with vibrant colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, pink. It was as if every hue in existence danced across the Oriental peacock's wings, dazzling but elegant, each shade shining with a gem-like radiance. A breathtaking sight. The entire process went smoother than he'd ever expected. When Asher opened his eyes, he felt as though the world had sharpened, becoming clearer and more vivid. Watching how effortlessly Asher bonded with the little oriental peacock, the staff member couldn't help but smile with envy. It seems like you two have a great affinity. The affinity between a beast master and their pet beast has always somewhat been mystical. Each pairing formed differently. Clearly, Asher and his oriental peacock had a natural synergy. No obstacles, no difficulties, just a mutual desire to connect, and they bonded in a heartbeat. The staff was genuinely happy for the little oriental peacock. After all, the beast breeding centers weren't exactly charitable organizations. Any beast with low abilities and without a beast master to take it in wouldn't be abandoned, but it certainly wouldn't get the best care. This little black oriental peacock had been at risk of falling into that category. Luckily, it met Asher, a beast master who had chosen it. The staff members swiftly completed the oriental peacock's registration. This card comes with 1 year's worth of special oriental peacock feed and 3 pet beast vaccines. The vaccines are administered monthly, and you'll need to bring it to the base for each shot over the next 3 months. Would you like to take all the food now? Just 2 months' supply for now, Asher replied after a moment's thought. I'm still not sure if the oriental peacock's diet will need any adjustments. If it does, I'll discuss with the base about switching to the necessary food. The staff member nodded. Soon enough, a full box of special feed for the oriental peacock was set in front of Asher. Here's the red mud worms and mixed fresh fruit. 1 pack per meal, 3 to 5 meals a day, all portioned out for you. When you need more, just bring this card back, and you can pick up the remaining supply. The staff returned his black card. Now that Asher had selected the black oriental peacock, the card would only allow him to access services at the oriental peacock breeding base. Carrying a box marked with the base's logo, Asher walked out with the little black oriental peacock perched on his shoulder. Perhaps because of the contract with the oriental peacock, even the midday sun didn't feel as harsh. As he strolled toward the bus stop, he spoke softly. How about I give you a name? The oriental peacock chirped, nuzzling his cheek in response. That meant yes. Let me think. Asher glanced at the little guy on his shoulder. In the physical world, the oriental peacock's feathers remained pitch black. But perhaps because he'd seen its brilliant colors in the spiritual realm, he kept imagining a hint of rainbow shimmering beneath its black feathers in the sunlight. So this was the legendary shimmering black? Well, if nothing else, I'll call you boss. The oriental peacock. Cough. Asher cleared his throat, pretending he hadn't just said that. How about Littile Raven? Though a simple name, he'd given it some real thought this time. You do look a bit like a raven. Besides, raven feathers also have hidden colors that human eyes can't see, only appearing black. Just the right fit? The oriental peacock didn't refuse the name, though it didn't quite capture its beauty. Seeing as its beast master thought it up, it would agree. After officially registering Little Raven at the Beast Masters Alliance, Asher was finally able to bring it home. He fed it a portion of its special food. The red mud worm was a special, cultivated insect, a favorite treat of most bird-type extraordinary beasts. And the mixed fresh fruits weren't ordinary either. They grew on trees that had failed their evolutionary attempts. These fruits, packed with nutrients and energy, were juicy and sweet, making them beloved by herbivorous and omnivorous extraordinary beasts. Neither food was cheap, and Little Raven ate a lot of it. Asher did the math. Little Raven's monthly food bill could easily match his living expenses for 3 months. Asher. At this moment, he silently thanked President Rob. The man had prepared a year's supply of food for Little Raven. Otherwise, he'd be selling his kidney, or worse, taking out a loan to keep it fed. After ensuring Little Raven had eaten its fill, Asher quickly took care of his own dinner. Then he began a thorough examination of Little Raven. Now, how should I go about planning Little Raven's evolution? Activating his eye of insight, Asher brought up Little Raven's panel. Pet beast, oriental peacock. Type, mid-grade low tier. Level, tier 2 mid-level. Skill, eagle eye. Evolution paths, radiant peacock, 3-legged golden crow. Evolution materials not yet gathered. My beast master is amazing. I'm thrilled. I like him. Like Dot. Seeing the repeated likes, Asher felt a bit embarrassed. How am I supposed to handle such an openly affectionate pet? Guess just get used to it. Asher moved his gaze to the evolution paths. First, he opened the Radiant Peacock option. Evolution requirements. Can evolve once strength reaches Tier 3. Days 1 to 7. Feed 1 rainbow glimmerflower per day, plus 20G each of sunlight crystals and moonlight crystals. Days 8 to 14. Feed 3 rainbow glimmerflowers per day, 40G each of sunlight and moonlight crystals, and 1 special element energy stone. Days 15 to 21. Feed 80G each of sunlight and moonlight crystals, 1 special element energy stone, and 1 light element energy stone. On day 21, upgrade to Tier 5 and feed 1 fairy tree fruit for a 50% chance of evolving into a radiant peacock. If unsuccessful, repeat from the beginning. Asher stared in silence. Is this an evolution path or a budget-draining path? Because all he could see was money. Chapter 13. No cash to burn? Get ready to grind. 7-colored glimmer flower, sunlight crystals, moonlight crystals, special energy stones, light element energy stones, and that elusive fairy tree fruit. Not a single one of these items comes cheap, and when you add it all up, the price casually starts in the millions. But only a 50% success rate in the end? Asher shook his head. In no way I can pull that off with my shitty luck. Sometimes a man's just got to admit his limits. Of course, this was just Asher's situation. If other Beast Masters knew that spending a few million could guarantee their Beast's evolution, there'd be a line of people eagerly throwing money. But he didn't have that luxury. Poverty is a strict master. He had trouble just keeping himself fed. With a sigh, Asher tapped on the 3-legged golden crow evolution path. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. Compared to the spend-happy, radiant peacock evolution path, the 3-legged golden crow seemed gentler on his wallet. Evolution method. Beast Master and Beast must reach 100 points in affection and sync. The Beast Master's spiritual sea and Beast space must expand fourfold. This achieved, evolution requirements can proceed. Daily exposure to sunlight and moonlight is needed, with the pet's spiritual energy reaching parity with the Beast Master's. Additionally, mastery of fire and special attribute skills is required. Only upon achieving the exclusive essence fire will evolution into the 3-legged golden crow succeed. Entire process must be completed within 400 days from the moment evolution begins. Failure means this evolution path can no longer be attempted. Compared to the radiant peacock, the 3-legged golden crow evolution method looked straightforward enough. But Asher knew better. It wasn't that simple. If Radiant Peacock was about throwing enough money at the problem until it went away, 3-legged golden crow was filled with uncertainties. 100 points of affection and sync? What other evolution paths require a beast's affection points, of all things? Asher swore he'd never heard of such a requirement. And then the Beast Master's spiritual sea and beast space needed to expand fourfold? 4 times. What did that mean? He could contract 3 more pet beasts. 4 beasts in total, including Little Raven. If he achieved that, he'd be at least a Tier 3 Beast Master. Most Beast Masters who could reach that level within 2 years after graduation were already considered geniuses. Tier 3 in 400 days? Is that even possible? Soaking up sunlight and moonlight was no big deal. Basically just sunbathing and stargazing. But to make his pet's spiritual energy match his own, and to train it in fire and special attribute skills. Asher felt a row of question marks forming in his mind. What is this madness? Is this even feasible? Little Raven's attributes were flying and special attribute, so mastering a special skill was tough, but not impossible. As for fire skills, something entirely unrelated? In theory, Little Raven could learn them, but mastering them would be another story, full of trial and error. The only way Asher could think of to help Little Raven learn a fire skill was through his talent, by snatching it from another beast. So, it's either burning cash or burning myself out, either pay up or grind endlessly. Realizing what was in store for him, Asher turned his gaze to Little Raven, who was busily preening her feathers with her dainty, pale yellow beak. Little Raven. Asher smiled warmly, extending a gentle finger to smooth down her tufted little crest. Little Raven, He murmured softly, his tone as tender as could be. "You're a hard-working little bird, aren't you?" Grinding wouldn't be a problem for little Raven. She'd be more than up for the challenge. Eyes bright with purpose, Asher watched little Raven closely. He didn't have a family legacy, couldn't afford to be a spender. That left only one option: grinding, hard work, and even more hard work. But he wouldn't let little Raven shoulder the load alone. In fact, he would lead by example, grinding even harder than her. Little Raven, perhaps understanding his words, shook her head, trying to free herself from his gentle hand. "So, you agree, right, little Raven?" "Good, it's settled." Relying on little Raven's inability to protest, Asher happily finalized his decision. Theoretically, he had two paths to choose from, but in reality, there was only one way forward. Following the three-legged golden crow path meant he'd have to complete everything within 400 days. That worked out to about a year and a month. Come fall, he'd be starting his senior year of high school. If he played his cards right, he might even be able to secure extra credits for college admissions, perhaps even earning a spot at a top university. Thinking all this, Asher laid out a rough plan for himself. First, he'd add meditation to his daily routine to push his spiritual seed to evolve within 6 months. Basking in sunlight and moonlight? Easy, that was a daily task. And boosting their affection, sync, and special skill proficiency? That could all be done simultaneously. The main challenge was helping little Raven learn fire skills. And that essence fire, a unique skill that only pets who truly grasp the essence of fire can wield. "I'll put that on the back burner for now," Asher muttered to himself. That was the final step. Before he could reach it, he needed to figure out where to harvest skills. Fairy butterfly? Not feasible. Fairy-type fairy butterflies could learn 2 fire skills, but getting one of those rare fire skills out of their skill set? It would be easier to evolve a fire-type pet and borrow a skill from it. He didn't own a fire-type pet, nor could he afford to contract one anytime soon, which left him with the option of helping other people evolve their pets. Asher was open to the idea. He was just worried that other people wouldn't be so open to it. What beast master would believe a high school student could help their pet evolve? "The journey is long, and I'll seek the way step by step, one step at a time." Asher wasn't going to pressure himself or stress over things beyond his control. No one knew what tomorrow held, so why overthink it? With a rough plan in place, Asher decided to start by giving little Raven a bath. Even though pet beasts are a class apart from regular animals, the first order of business at home should be personal hygiene. That said, he pulled out a large soup bowl. "There isn't a better container here, so let's make do with this," Asher said, looking at little Raven. Little Raven. Her tiny black eyes suddenly reflected a sense of pure horror. Flapping her little wings furiously, little Raven tried to escape Asher's evil grip. Treachery, a coup against the throne, but little Raven's escape attempt was in vain. With one hand, Asher held down the squirming little Raven, and with the other, he filled the soup bowl with warm water. Testing the temperature, he placed little Raven into the bowl. "It's just a bath. No need for the theatrics." Since he didn't have pet-specific shampoo, Asher didn't dare use his cheap body wash on her either. He had to settle for gently cleaning her feathers with water alone. He moved carefully, wiping each feather in the direction it lay. Initially, little Raven struggled, but as he continued cleaning, she gradually relaxed. Thanks to her naturally oily feathers, she floated comfortably on the water's surface instead of sinking. When he scrubbed her wings, she'd lift them. When he reached her tail feathers, she'd obligingly raise them. Not too shabby. Seeing her look so content, Asher couldn't help but chuckle. No matter what, this is a promising first step toward our bond, right? Little Raven was small, so the bath didn't take long. After finishing, Asher treated himself to a hot shower, then finally sank into his soft bed. It had been a full day. Before long, he drifted off into sleep. The moonlight streamed through his window, casting a soft glow over his bed. At some point, little Raven hopped out of her little nest by his pillow. With delicate steps, she tiptoed across his hair until she found a cozy spot on his pillow, nestled right by his face. She patted his cheek with a gentle wing. "Good night." When Asher woke up, he nearly jumped out of bed. For a second, He thought he'd somehow sleepwalked. You little troublemaker. He tapped the tuft on little Raven's head. She chirped, hopping happily atop his head. Chuckling, Asher set about preparing breakfast for her. One look outside, and he was greeted with perfect weather, bright and sunny. Starting today, we're soaking up that sun. Chapter 14. Fairy Butterfly's First Battle. Rose Villa District, New York City. This was one of the top luxury neighborhoods in New York City, nestled by mountains and rivers, with custom environments suited for nearly every type of beast. Many mid to high-level beast masters called this place home. Ivy had just arrived at the entrance when her best friend June came running out, followed closely by a small red fox that chirped happily behind her. "Ivy, you're finally here," June exclaimed, throwing her arms around Ivy, her bright voice chattering excitedly in her ear. The little red fox eagerly leaped into Ivy's arms too. Ivy chuckled, hugging the soft little creature as she took June's hand. "I've already heard about what your parents did. Seriously, how can people like that exist?" June scoffed, pulling Ivy along as they headed inside. "Forget them. Come live with me. I guarantee they won't dare to bother you here. You're way too nice. If they weren't your parents, would they even have the nerve to pull something like that on a pre-licensed beast masters?" It was a fair point. Beast masters were given a certain level of protection by law. But aside from that, conflicts between beast masters and ordinary people were inevitable. If a beast master was the aggressor, they faced strict punishment to set an example. But if the beast master was the victim, the offender faced even harsher consequences. Not to mention, Ivy was an underage pre-licensed beast master. Her parents' actions against her contracted beast already broke the law. As Ivy's closest friend, June knew all too well about the mess with her family. The way her parents treated her was something June could never stand. They thought of their child as a tool, throwing her away when it suited them and picking her back up when they pleased. June only had 2 words for that if that happened to her: keep dreaming. Before long, they arrived at June's family home. It was quite literally a castle straight out of the medieval era, towering majestically in front of Ivy. But neither June nor Ivy batted an eye. They were used to it. June was focused on something else. She glanced at Ivy cautiously, biting her lip before quietly asking, "Is Nene okay?" Ivy nodded. "She's more than okay." If anything, Ivy wasn't quite sure how to explain the changes in Nene to June. "Oh, thank goodness." June breathed a sigh of relief, misinterpreting Ivy's hesitation as concern over Nene's condition after losing her honey sac. Still, June gently held Ivy's hand, her tone sincere and careful. "I know how much Nene means to you, and I respect that you contracted her to help her grow. I never said anything before, but now that Nene's lost her honey sac, she's practically just an ordinary creature. I'm worried that you might..." June wanted to persuade Ivy not to sacrifice her future for Nene, but she didn't want to hurt her friend either. To her surprise, Ivy didn't look sad or distressed. Instead, she flashed a bright smile. "Thank you for caring, June," Ivy said happily. How could she not feel grateful for her friend's concern? Nene is perfectly fine. In fact, she actually went through an amazing change. June's head was filled with huge question marks. A change? What kind of change could Nene go through? "Let me show you," Ivy said. Professor Iris and President Rob had asked her to keep Nene's evolution under wraps, but they hadn't forbidden her from telling anyone. And Ivy had no intention of hiding it from June. Grabbing her friend's hand, Ivy closed her eyes. Within her spiritual sea, she called out to Nene. June's eyes widened in shock. What was this? Sparkling, pink starlight surrounded Ivy's body, forming an ethereal aura. Then, a butterfly over 1/2 meter tall, with delicate, translucent wings tinged in pink, blue, and purple, descended beside her. It was stunning, dreamlike, something not of this world. Opening her eyes with a smile, Ivy introduced the newly evolved Nene to June. Look, yeah, Nene evolved. June blinked at the fairy butterfly before her, then closed her eyes briefly. Her mind flashed back to the chubby pink caterpillar she had seen so many times before. Opening her eyes once more, she stared at the butterfly. She wasn't dreaming, right? Am I really not dreaming? June pointed at the fairy butterfly, her finger trembling. This was beyond belief. Nope, you're wide awake. After Nene lost her honey sac, she evolved. This is her new form, the fairy butterfly. Isn't that name fitting? Ivy smiled. June nodded, her gaze filled with awe as she took in the fairy butterfly. Fitting indeed. She looks just like a fairy, so beautiful and unreal. But the idea of a honey bug evolving. June glanced at the fairy butterfly. Even if she struggled to believe it, the reality was right before her. There was no denying it. Tell me everything. I feel like I missed a whole year of your life, not just a half-month summer break. How could I miss something as insane as a honey bug evolving? Ivy didn't hold back, recounting everything that had happened. With every word, June's eyes shone brighter. Even the wildest rumors online wouldn't go this far. If it weren't you telling me, I'd swear you were making it up. An idea suddenly struck June, and her eyes sparkled even more. How about a battle? Aren't you curious about Nene's new powers? Ivy hesitated, but eventually nodded. Before, Nene had been just a honey bug, a creature entirely unsuited for battle. Ivy's savings barely covered the costs of contracting a regular beast, let alone the resources and treasures required to raise it properly. She hadn't wanted to shortchange Nene, so contracting a second beast had never crossed her mind. Now though, Nene had evolved into a fairy butterfly, with her rank and strength shooting up in a flash. For the first time, Ivy felt a hint of excitement at the prospect of a real battle. She couldn't help but wonder, how would Nene fare against June's low-tier firefox? All right, let's give it a try, Ivy said gently. June's eyes sparkled mischievously. Don't worry, Weiwei. Since it's your and Nene's first fight, I'll go easy on you with Little Fox. As if hearing her name, the red fox jumped out of Ivy's arms, standing protectively in front of June. Its large, fiery tail rose high in the air, and its eyes sparkled with fierce determination. Yip yip! Little Fox's paws dug into the ground, her large, expressive eyes fixed intently on the fairy butterfly fluttering above. Nene, just do your best, Ivy encouraged gently. Yip! The fairy butterfly let out a sound similar to Little Fox's, a high-pitched trill. Little Fox's gaze darkened in an instant, the friendliness vanishing. Some things could be tolerated, but not this. Only her cries were allowed to be this cute. No other pet would steal that from her. Today, this was the day she would defeat this mimic. A small spark flared at the edge of Little Fox's mouth, her excitement plain to see. Mind if I go first? June asked, seeing that both Ivy and the fairy butterfly were ready. Without waiting for a response, she raised her arm. Little Fox, fire attack. Yip yip, YP. With a powerful leap, Little Fox sprang forward, a stream of orange-red flames bursting from her mouth and shooting straight toward the fairy butterfly. Ivy was startled, momentarily frozen. She watched as tiny flames danced perilously close to the fairy butterfly's delicate wings. Thankfully, Nene reacted quickly, rising higher into the air just in time to avoid serious harm. Chapter 15. Do I stand a chance? Despite narrowly dodging, the fairy butterfly's wings still ended up with a small, singed patch. It wasn't serious, but to Ivy, it was painfully obvious. She pressed her soft pink lips together, her eyes filled with self-reproach. This is all because I reacted too slowly. Damn it. Don't overthink it. June put her hands on her hips, grinning. Little Fox and I have a decent amount of battle experience, you know? Just train with us more often, and you'll get used to it. June's words were a small comfort to Ivy, and they made her realize something important. To become a good beast master, it wasn't enough to rely on her pet alone. She couldn't be the one holding the fairy butterfly back. Determined, Ivy declared, this battle isn't over yet. June raised an eyebrow, smirking. I just wanted to see how strong your Nene has become after evolving. Attack power aside, her dodging speed is pretty impressive, but make no mistake, I'll make sure you lose fair and square. Little Fox, jump and use fire attack. Ivy huffed softly. Thanks, but not comforting at all. You think Nene and I just been sitting around doing nothing all this time? As little fox leapt at the fairy butterfly, claws extended like a kitten pouncing on a butterfly, Ivy's eyes gleamed. Nene, Windblade, the fairy butterfly's wings began to flap rapidly. Invisible currents of air coalesced around her, sharpening into deadly blades aimed straight at the airborne little fox. To everyone's surprise, the powerful gusts even blew little fox's flames back toward her. Swish! 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 Little fox, caught off guard, crashed to the ground. Her once sleek fur was now a mess, singed and ragged. Little fox? June? What in the world? What kind of bizarre attack was that? June immediately launched into a string of exclamations, while Little Fox sat there whimpering. Little Fox wanted to cry. My beautiful, glossy fur gone? Watching June and Little Fox's identical looks of dismay, Ivy barely managed to stifle her laughter. Cough, cough. I'm absolutely not laughing at their faces. There. Don't cry, Little Fox. June's heart went out to her furry friend as she scooped her up, soothing her with gentle pats. Just eat some fire attribute energy stones, and your beautiful fur will grow back soon. Okay? After a round of coaxing, Little Fox finally stopped sulking. However, the look she gave the fairy butterfly had shifted from friendly to challenging. Just give me one more chance. I will bring that damn butterfly down. The fairy butterfly fluttered her wings, looking as unbothered as ever. A little fox wanting to catch me? Dreams. Ing. She was waiting. The fairy butterfly perched on Ivy's shoulder, casting a playful glance at Little Fox that clearly signaled, go ahead and try. Ivy and June exchanged a look. Maybe they should just let these two settle their little grudge themselves. The fairy butterfly is way stronger than I expected, June said as she finally calmed down, studying the butterfly with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Honestly, people used to speculate about possible evolution paths for honeybugs, June began. Coming from a prestigious family of beast masters, she knew things most people wouldn't. A long time ago, they experimented with honeybugs. After all, it's common knowledge that many insect-type creatures naturally evolve into butterflies or moths. But honeybug evolution research eventually stalled. Then, with the agreements later signed between the government and high-tier beasts, these experiments were abandoned entirely. Honeybugs not evolving had become an unchanging truth for centuries. And now, out of nowhere, here was a honeybug that had actually evolved. A coincidence? June was skeptical. A mix of luck and chance, I guess? Ivy tilted her head, explaining. Professor Iris believes Nene evolved mainly because she had the willpower to survive. She didn't go crazy and self-destruct like other honeybugs. June frowned slightly. That actually makes sense. After all, no one understood how deeply Ivy cared for her honeybug better than June. This is a miracle made possible by your love, June said. But her tone shifted, and a gleam appeared in her eyes. My beast master instincts tell me that guy at the pet service center knows something. There's no way he didn't. Ivy thought back to her interactions with Asher. Absolutely nothing out of the ordinary, right? June observed Ivy's pink, slightly flushed earlobes for a few seconds before narrowing her eyes and letting out a knowing chuckle. It's decided. Let's go meet this guy. Ivy wanted to refuse, but then she heard June continue. I want to thank him, too. After all, he saved the most important family member of my best friend. With Little Fox in her arms, June set off, though Ivy tried her hardest, but little did it affect June. Asher, a girlish voice, tinged with a hint of doubt, reached him. The sun was at its peak, scorching the world below. Ivy and June, shaded by their parasols, walked under the trees to avoid the midday heat. And what did they see? Someone sitting outside, directly below the blazing sun, legs crossed and eyes closed in meditation. Hearing the familiar voice calling his name, Asher opened his eyes. The rush of hot air made his smile freeze for a moment. Ugh. Yeah, it is definitely hot. Hello. Asher picked up a chair by the door and held it open for Ivy and June, letting them step inside first. He followed them in. Asher, what were you just doing? Ivy glanced at him, noticing the sweat on his forehead, and couldn't help but ask, has he been singled out for some kind of special treatment? Or is he some kind of a masochist? Understanding the look in her eyes, Asher waved it off with a smile. Oh, my pet little raven loves sunbathing. It's good for her, so I decided to keep her company. Only then did Ivy and June realize that the small, black bird on Asher's shoulder was indeed his pet beast. June leaned in, inspecting little Raven with curiosity. What kind of beast is this? Looks a bit like a peacock, but isn't it a little too small? And the color, is this some new species? She looked at Asher with even more curiosity. She knew it. There was something special about him. Not quite understanding June's intrigued gaze, but feeling a little self-conscious, Asher chuckled. Little Raven is indeed a peacock, but she's undergone an unusual mutation, which is why she's so small. He didn't see the point in hiding it. In a few words, he explained. June nodded thoughtfully. So, you're betting on her evolving in a positive direction after the mutation? Huh. Ivy, who knew a bit about his situation, looked at him with concern. Isn't that a bit too risky? If it doesn't work out, June's eyes sharpened at Ivy's words. A pre-licensed beast master working at a pet service center? This guy have no money to spare, does he? And yet he still dares to contract such a pet. June's gaze intensified as she assessed Asher, wondering if he was talented or just plain reckless. Thank you, Ivy, Asher replied with a smile. There wasn't much he could say in response, nor was it easy to explain. Quickly, he changed the subject. So, what brings you here today? Is something wrong with the fairy butterfly? It's not me. It's June who... Ivy trailed off, glancing at June. Without hesitation, June stepped forward, meeting Asher's gaze directly.